What's going on, guys? Today we are taking a look at... hang on now. I thought we already covered this. Must be something different in the box. Yep, we did this before with Godzilla. Huh?
In this series, we're going to be taking a look at every single Hiya Exquisite basic figure in the Godzilla line. Every repaint, reissue, 2.0, whatever they put out, we're going to be taking a look at them all in release order. Let's get started.
What is going on, guys? Today we are taking a look at the Hiya Toys Exquisite Basic Skull Devil once again. Now, why are we taking a look at this figure again? Well, this is technically speaking a 2.0 release of the Skull Island Skull Devil, although Hiya Toys has never officially labeled it as such. Let us paint a picture here to set the scene. So in 2025, Hiya Toys significantly delayed their entire Exquisite Basic lineup to make various adjustments and improvements across the board. Now, it would eventually take Hiya roughly 5 months to get figures released again on a consistent schedule. And in that drought, they squeaked out a Skull Devil reissue. That's what they called it, folks. They called this a reissue. Now, what is this actually? Well, if you recall, just a few short videos ago, we took a look at the Godzilla vs. Kong Skullcrawler repaint in quotations, because for that release, they actually went back and re-engineered the entire neck and head, giving it more range and giving it an extra tongue piece. This reissue is a repaint of that mold. This is not the same Skullcrawler. This is a repaint of effectively a 2.0 version of the figure, and they just kind of quietly kicked this out the door. Oh, yes. Now, just to be crystal clear, if you're interested in getting this version of the figure, or if you already have this version and you want the old figure, there's a couple things you're going to want to look out for on the box. But annoyingly, the box is roughly the same, so at a glance, it's going to be a little tricky to figure out which is which. The main difference is that on the original figure's packaging, the box says Skull Devil Action Figure, and Skull Devil is one word. On the new figure's packaging, it does not say action figure, and Skull Devil is now 2 words. That's the main thing to look out for. Some other subtle differences is that the original box art has this line of text underneath the film title, and the new packaging has the copyright logos above the film's logo. Also, the text on the back of the box is a little different, but the SKU number on the barcode is identical. If you're interested in getting one version or the other, you have to look at in-hand photos of either the box or the figure. Now, with all that out of the way, let's talk very briefly about the sculpted detailing. This is the exact same mold as the GBK figure. The sculpted detailing is like 95% similar to the original Skull Devil, Skullcrawler, whatever you want to call it. The only difference in the sculpt is going to be this little ridge at the top of the head, which was sculpted on the GBK figure. Other than that, this was always a great looking figure in terms of sculpted detailing, and this version is no exception. Let's move on now to paint. Now, at a glance, this might look identical to the original figure. It is no doubt using a very similar master paint scheme. The base color for the whole figure is a much deeper, darker green this time around. And this means that all of the accents really stand out more. This figure looks overall a lot more vibrant. It also doesn't have quite as much of a sheen as the GBK figure. It has more of a matte finish. Even more so, I would say, than the original figure. But talking more about those accents, the spine is accented in this very light, almost moss green. Underneath the figure, you're going to have that very similar bone tan coloring going on for the chest as it fades into that dark green on top. Now, underneath the tail, it's actually going to be more of a greenish brown rather than this tan. It's a little awkward. I wish that was transitioned a little better, but you're not going to see that all too much, so it's not the biggest of issues. The forearms are going to have this bone white beautifully painted on transitioning up into the elbow spikes. And the feet are going to be more of that almost Yoda green. Moving on to the head, much like the original, you're going to have that beautiful bone white painted over the entire skull area, although it's much more vibrant on this figure, in my opinion, than the original. And those eyes, just as beautiful as the original. They look identical. I don't think there's any paint differences there on the eyes. The interior of the mouth has a very similar reddish pink with some grays. They did a very good job at replicating the look of the rubber insert, despite the fact that the membranes are now plastic, just like the GBK figure. Most notable difference here in terms of paint is actually going to be the teeth, which on the original figure were bloodied. Here, they're a very nice, almost pearl white. They have this really nice shine to them. Unfortunately, they did not get that paint on the upper teeth, but that's okay because those upper teeth are barely present. I mean, they are sculpted on there, but they're more like tiny little nubs than anything. Taking a look now at how this figure compares to the original Skull Devil. Again, very similar paint schemes, but the new one is more vibrant, it's deeper, the accents pop better than on the original. But these are ultimately very similar looking figures. Although the underside on the original was more of a green, and on this new one it's more of a tan, the original did have a better transition going down to the tail than this new one, although again, it's not a huge deal in my opinion. And here's a look at the top of the heads. They did a remarkable job matching the look of both figures, despite the fact that the neck and the top of the head was completely resculpted for this figure. You can barely tell that this little crest piece is here. Very nice work, Hiya. You almost got away with this being called a reissue. Taking a look now at articulation, this is going to be the exact same thing we've seen time and time again. Starting with the neck, this is again going to be the main difference, which is that now this is essentially a socket, and this is a ball joint here and a ball joint in there, allowing the head to go all the way down. You can look up about that far. It can go side to side. Very nice. That is a massive upgrade from the original. Just like the original, the mouth does have this auto-opening gimmick, but for some reason, it only works on the upper jaw, This wasn't the case on the GBK version. The lower jaw just does not want to move for me, but it will move if I open the upper jaw. Kind of strange. Again, not a big deal. It's the same mechanism. It just means you have to pivot it from a different access point. The shoulders are going to be on pinned hinges. They can go out about that far. They can go all the way around. You're going to get a swivel at the bicep. You're going to get a double hinged elbow. You can go about that far. And the ankles are going to be on revolver joints. They can go up, down, swivel above and below the pin there. These are very stiff on mine. I have heated it up. It's just stiff. The waist, this is a ball joint. It can crunch a very good amount. This is very comparable to the original figure. On my GBK figure, I mentioned that there was like barely any movement there. I really do think this was just an issue on my copy, as this is a repaint of that mold, and I can get a much better crunch, so I think I just got a weird copy of the GBK figure. Anyway, ball joint here, bendy wire tail. Very good bendy wire. I don't think it's going to break. You're not going to have any issues with it. That is the Skull Devil. Now, as this is a repaint of the GBK figure, you do still get the extra tongue piece, which is a nice inclusion to have on the Skull Island figure. All you do is you pop out the tongue. It's on a tiny little ball joint. Pop the new one in. And there you go. It's a very nice looking accessory. You cannot close the mouth all the way, but hey, that's all right if you want options on the tongue. All right, let's talk about scale. As I've mentioned twice now, it's kind of hard to get a gauge for the true scale of this figure. There's not really a true neutral pose. You can get this thing pretty tall. You can get this thing pretty low. You can get the tail curved around. So in a pose like this, the figure stands about 4.5 inches tall, and it is still approximately 13 and some change inches long. Now for some size comparisons, here are going to be your 3 skull crawlers, skull devils, whatever you want to call them. And I'm not gonna lie, this scratches an itch that I didn't know I had. These are very fun to army build. And here's how the figure looks next to Hiya's largest figure, as well as an average Hiya Godzilla figure. Here's how the figure looks next to a couple SH Monster Arts figures, a Titanic Creations action figure, and an SH Figure Arts, a Bandai action figure, and a Super 7 Super Kaiju figure. And here's how the Skullcrawler looks next to an SH Kong and the Hiya Skull Island Kong. The Skullcrawler pairs very nice with either figure line. And, of course, here is how your Skull Devil will look next to a banana. Look, I'm going to be real with you guys. I loved the original Skullcrawler, and I love this one too. I think this is an objectively better Skullcrawler, no matter how you slice it. Comes with an extra accessory, it has a better neck. The paint might be personal preference, but other than that, you're just getting a straight upgrade here. I do think it's a little questionable of Hiya Toys to call this a reissue, as I don't think many people were expecting a repaint of the GBK mold. And I think if people knew this was a repaint of the GBK mold, they might have either replaced their existing Skullcrawler, gotten a new one, or maybe even bought into this mold to begin with. Maybe they only got the GBK repaint and they were looking for an original figure. I do think that decision was a little questionable. I think they should have been more transparent with what they were putting out. Because no, this is not a reissue. This is a repaint of a new mold. And something just doesn't sit right with me with them giving it the exact same SKU. No new solicitation, no new description. They just kind of kicked it out the door. And if you knew, you knew. And if you missed this, well, you might be shit out of luck. Because I don't know if this is still in stock. This reissue might have been a one and done batch. My gripes with the release strategy aside, yeah, I highly recommend this. If you're looking for a Skullcrawler, even if you already have the original, this is a very fun figure to army build. I think the only thing they could have done different is included a couple smaller Skullcrawlers, but at that point, they couldn't call it a reissue now, could they? Yeah, very tricky, Hiya. Very tricky. Yeah, this is a very quick look at a very interesting release. Thank you all for joining me once again. Stay tuned next week as we finally get into the real exciting releases from Hiya Toys. Oh yes, the year of 2025 was a very impressive year. Till next time, guys. See ya!